Hello, I'm Rafael Peñafiel and this is my video blog for Jelly 2. When I first enrolled in Jelly 2, I had a vague understanding of what it meant to study literature. I imagined it would be about reading books from different countries, but I didn't realize how deep the journey would go, how much it would shift my perspectives on identity, culture, and the way we all fit in this shared global narrative. As the course unfolded, I started to see the world literature is not just about reading foreign stories. It's about learning to see the world through a different lens, reflecting on the forces that shape our lives, and understanding how interconnected our human experience truly is. For Module 1, which is National and the Global, here are my takeaways. First is the balance between national identity and global appeal. One of the central themes discussed in the module is the tension between national traditions and the globalization of narratives. The readings such as literature, national contexts, and vision out of the corner of one eye present the idea that while stories are deeply rooted in specific national contexts, they must also find a way to resonate with a broader global audience. Authors and artists are constantly navigating this balance, infusing their works with cultural markers that speak to their heritage while also crafting universal themes that are relevant to a globalized world. For example, in the short film Bao, the storyline about a mother and her dumpling-turned son is deeply personal and rooted in Asian family dynamics. Yet, its universal themes of love, loss, and letting go resonate with audiences across different cultures. Second is cultural markers and risk of homogenization. Another takeaway is the Another takeaway is the risk of cultural erasure when national narratives are translated or adapted for global consumption. In reading an enigmatic nature and watching the present, it becomes evident that cultural markers, specific traditions, social norms, and even linguistic subtleties often hold the key to understanding the story's deeper meaning. These markers are what give a narrative its authenticity and grounding. However, when these works are translated or adapted for a global audience, there is often a tendency to strip them of these unique characteristics to make them more accessible or relatable to a wider demographic. In El Empleo, a short animated film about the dehumanizing nature of modern labor, the narrative is accessible globally due to its minimal dialogue and universal themes, but it still manages to reflect its Latin American context through the use of symbolism and setting. This adaptation for a global audience highlights the struggle between keeping cultural specificity intact and the necessity of making the story accessible to those outside of the original cultural context. The challenge lies in avoiding the homogenization of stories that lose their cultural essence in the process. Third is subversive narratives and their role in challenging globalization. Finally, an important insight that arises from this module is the role of subversive narratives in challenging both national and global norms. As seen in Shirley Jackson's The Lottery and Tuck Me In, a short animated horror film, certain narratives challenge societal expectations and question entrenched cultural practices, both within their national context and on the global stage. These works resist easy categorization and invite viewers and readers to critically engage with societal issues, often highlighting the discomfort and complexity within seemingly universal themes. In The Lottery, Jackson critiques the dangers of blind tradition and conformity within a society, a message that can be seen as subversive not only in the context of the United States but universally, as it calls into the question global practices of unquestioning obedience to outdated norms. Similarly, Tuck Me In uses horror as a medium to subvert expectation about innocence and trust, using universal emotions to tap into deeper societal fears. These narratives provoke thought and encourage resistance to globalized cultural standards that often prioritize efficiency and order over individual rights and ethical concerns. For Module 2, titled Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present, we explore the impact of colonization on literature, identity, and global dynamics. By engaging with materials focused on post-colonial theory and literature, we are tasked with understanding how colonial histories have shaped the identities of colonized nations and how these nations have responded to their histories in the present day. For my takeaways, for number one, post-colonial theory and its role in reading literature. A central theme in the module is the importance of post-colonial literary theory as a framework for interpreting narratives in the video, Post-Colonial Ways of Reading, and the lecture Post-Colonial Literary Theory. We are introduced to concepts such as hegemony, colonial discourse, and the marginalization of indigenous voices. Post-colonial theory provides critical tools for analyzing how colonial powers have shaped not only the histories, but also the cultural and literary outputs of the colonized. In particular, the danger of a single story highlights how the singular narrative of colonized peoples often leads to a misrepresentation of their identities and experiences. For example, in Telephone Conversation by Wol Soyinka, the seemingly innocuous exchange between a landlord and a prospective tenant reveals the subtle racism and stereotyping embedded within colonial power structures. The power of post-colonial theory lies in its ability to deconstruct these biased representations and encourage a more nuanced, multifaceted reading or text, shedding light on the complexities of colonial and post-colonial relationships. Second is reclaiming authentic identity in the post-colonial world. A significant takeaway from this module is the notion of reclaiming authentic identity in the aftermath of colonialism. Colonization has historically sought to erase or alter the identities of colonized peoples through cultural assimilation, language acquisition, and the destruction of indigenous traditions. As a result, many post-colonial narratives focus on reclaiming lost identities and redefining what it means to be indigenous in a world that has long imposed foreign standards. The danger of the single story vividly illustrates how colonization reduces complex societies to oversimplified stereotypes. She calls for the representation of multiple diverse narratives from within the colonized cultures, as opposed to allowing the dominant colonial narrative to determine what is authentic. Thirdly is the ongoing struggle for power and representation in the post-colonial present. Despite the end of colonial rule, the post-colonial present is marked by struggles for political autonomy, economic independence, and cultural representations. These struggles are also evident in the persistence of neocolonialism, where the cultural, economic, and political power of former colonial powers continues to exert influence over post-colonial states. This power imbalance shapes global narratives and continues to affect post-colonial nations. Post-colonial nations' ability to fully reclaim their cultural identities and assert their sovereignty on the global stage. And lastly, for Module 3, I only read Dear Evan Hansen, and here are my 3 takeaways from this reading. First is about mental health and the stigma surrounding it. One of the central themes in Dear Evan Hansen is the exploration of mental health, particularly the challenges that individuals with anxiety and depression face. Evan, the protagonist, struggles with social anxiety and a sense of invisibility in his high school community. This this reading opens with Evan writing letters to himself, a therapeutic exercise which ultimately becomes a catalyst for a chain of events that spirals out of his control. This reading highlights how mental health issues, particularly anxiety and depression, are often misunderstood or minimized by those who don't experience them. Evan's struggles are dismissed by others as merely being part of the typical teenage angst, reflecting the common societal tendency to downplay mental health concerns. Second is the exploration of how social media shapes identity and relationships in the modern age. The musical illustrates how the reading illustrates how the digital world, with its potential for both connection and isolation, plays a significant role in the characters' lives. Then lastly, last takeaway is the consequences of seeking connection through deception. The final takeaway centers on the consequences of seeking connection through deception. Evan's decision to fabricate his relationship with Connor is an attempt to gain the attention and affection he so desperately desires. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that these false connections lead to even greater isolation, confusion, and harm for both Evan and the people around him. So, the two most important learnings about Jelly 2 that will help me develop as an individual are number one, cultural awareness and social responsibility. Literature often reflects the issues and concerns of the time it was written, providing insights into the social, cultural, and historical context of different communities by reading works from diverse cultures and time periods. We can better appreciate the complexities of global society and our place within it. These insights help us become more socially responsible individuals, recognizing the importance of justice and respect for all. Then secondly, and the most important for me, is learning to appreciate literature. As a person who doesn't like to read, I appreciated it more with the choices of the readings our prof gave us. It was about context that I personally can relate to, and our social issues that still currently happening in our society. In a way, it helped me enjoy the subject more. Thank you, and that is all for my video blog.